Let's see here. All right, everybody. This is Dr. William Clark here. You guys know me from the Dr. William Clark podcast. Today, I got Marcel Anderson on the line, and he is from Accelerating Men Incorporated. It is a budding nonprofit organization. We're going to do a quick case study. Marcel, do I got your permission to share this, record this, and share this with our friends all over Facebook and elsewhere?
Yes, sir.
Awesome, awesome. Well, welcome to the case study. So I had a chance to kind of hear a little bit of Marcel's story, and what you guys can hear is just me and Marcel having an open conversation. Now, what's interesting about Marcel, there are things that you said, Marcel, that I typically would advise. I would advise someone starting out to do. You already down that road, and that's particularly answering the question of how do you get off the ground, and you are doing it right. You might see me say this all over Facebook or whatever groups I'm a part of. The fastest way to get some quick money in the door is to fund it yourself. Now, I encourage people to tithe. Tithing represents a commitment, a standard, a discipline of giving on a regular basis. And obviously, based upon what you share with me, you probably do that and then some. You probably give a love offering, a love gift, a sacrificial gift, the whole nine. And I always advise people to tithe, but also to have their board tithe, but also to have their family and friends tithe for 6 months to match you. Part of the reason why I ask for that commitment and at the 6-month level is for people to see a start date and end date of their giving. And if they love you, if they care about you, and they want to invest in your vision, the story is Marcel, I give to no end. But I'm asking my friends and family to commit 6 months. And after 6 months, if you want to end, fine. If you want to continue, let's keep it moving. Or we can just invite other family and friends to be a part of this. But you want to see people invest in your future. But clearly, you've been doing that yourself. But then the question now you want to answer is, how do I accelerate growth, launch exponential growth, kind of go to the next phase, especially since you have already started the tithing process, which I do applaud. And you mentioned partnerships. Now, I want to walk you quickly through the 3 secrets I teach all of my students when it comes to fundraising and raising serious money. Now, people who are watching this, and Marcel, you reached out to me because I don't necessarily specialize in small gifts. You on your own can get $2,500 from Walmart, $1,000 from Home Depot, $5,000 from your local foundation. That's not what I specialize in. I specialize in major gifts, large gifts, 6-figure gifts for each of the programs you operate in. So in order to do that, there are 3 secrets that I teach my students. Secret number 1, the third fastest way to raise money is to have a strategy. Everybody should have a strategy, an action plan, a strategic plan, a forward-thinking plan that takes you from here to the next couple of years. And of course, as things change, you tweak the plan and you forecast as much as you can. The second fastest way to raise money is through performance. So you got to have results. Based upon your website, I believe you may have some results, but we'll dig into that in a moment. Do you know the fastest way to raise serious money? Would you take a wild guess?
The fastest way
Mm-hmm.
is to ask for
Kind of close, but you mentioned it earlier. It's relationships, man. It's partnerships. It's really key. Partnerships is the fastest way to unlock money. So I want to kind of walk through an example, a series of examples with you in context of these 3 secrets. Now, let's start with the strategy piece. I'm looking at your website. You serve young men between the ages of 10 to 18, which actually is kind of hot. Actually, the hotter age group really is between 12 and 24. So when you are serving the under 18 crowd, you're really saying that you're serving the 7th and 8th grade crowd all the way up through high school. The question you got to ask yourself, and I don't clearly see it on your website, is what are you specializing in? Now, one of the things that's always interesting to me is when people say they have a nonprofit that mentors a group of people. How do we define mentorship? And I think that's something you need to work on when it comes to your strategy piece. The mentoring piece needs to be specialized or specifically identified with specific outcomes that are relevant to the life trajectory of the young man, in this case, who is between the age of 10 to 18, especially if you're looking to get funded. When we talk about funding, and you talked about doing events, sponsorships, grants, partnerships, etc., you got to have an outcome that is attractive to every one of your potential funders, particularly large-scale foundations. So I'm talking about outcomes that are relevant to what they fund: workforce development, the transition from 8th grade to 9th grade, which is very, very hot. I don't know about in your area, but typically the drop off between an 8th grade kid and a 9th grade kid is huge. And that transition can lead to significant absenteeism, bad grades, dropping out of school, and can lead to a down forecast for a young man's life or a young woman's life, depending on who you're serving. And so when you start to talk about what are you mentoring towards, it needs to be something you're trying to get at, something that's forward thinking, that's very specific to the funding elements, the funding characteristics, the funding outcomes of a funder. And when it comes to youth, it's typically career driven, it's typically job driven, is typically economic driven, is typically academically driven. So you want to start to be specific around that. Now, I know when I look at your website, and for those watching, you want to visit acceleratingmen.org. Let's show Marcel some support, acceleratingmen.org. But when you go to your website and you talk about, you focus on identity, spirituality, and leadership development, while I understand that, when you look at a funder or you talk to a funder and you start to think about how can you attract their money to your organization, none of that speaks to them, okay? None of that speaks to them. And the funny thing is, I literally, first of all, my doctorate is in strategic leadership, so I understand the whole world of leadership, and I just wrapped up a proposal to focus on as 8th grade mentoring, right? But we don't talk about mentoring at all. We talk about everything around leadership and that transition from 8th grade to 9th grade. So it's interesting that you're targeting this. But what I had to do, what me and my staff had to do, we had to reword everything about our proposal and get rid of the word leadership, because leadership is this nebulous, ambiguous term that everybody swears that they can define. And the truth is they cannot. And I'm not going to ask you to define leadership, but I do want to help you understand like why it's important to get beyond the general term of leadership. Because leadership, properly defined, is the ability to influence a person or group of people or self to achieve a goal or an outcome. That is the basic, simplistic definition of leadership. When you talk about young men and mentoring them, the question you still got to answer is, how am I developing them, leadership development, to achieve XYZ outcome? Again, it goes back to where I started. What's the outcome we're targeting? Is it identity? Well, what does that mean? In the culture we live in, that needs to be specified even more, right? When it comes to spirituality, like I think I understand what you mean, but that needs to be specified even more. And just know funders are not going to fund anything that is faith-based oriented, although spirituality can have this generic term. When we talk about leadership development, what are we targeting? Are we influencing young men to prepare for their careers? Are we preparing them to be economically self-sufficient? Are we preparing them to take on advocacy roles, whether self-advocacy, community advocacy, political advocacy, given what's happening around the social justice arena? Are we preparing them to deal with social justice issues? Are we preparing them to enter into college or any trade school opportunities so that they can become XYZ members of their community? Are preparing them to become entrepreneurs? So this term of leadership development, this term of mentoring, has to have an outcome. This is the strategy piece. This is the third secret, right? That needs to be defined. There must be a strategic plan that you got to develop to get to that outcome. Now, the secret number 2 I talk about is performance. You got to have results. Now, I'm willing to believe that you have results. Can you tell me over the past 12 months how many young men you've mentored and graduated through your program?
Over the last 12 months, we've actually mentored 14 young men. We've actually had the opportunity to graduate 2 young men successfully out of high school. But we've had 14 who graduated from our program. We're a year-to-year based program, so they have to reapply every year. So 100% of our young men have successfully graduated our program successfully. And then also there's a requirement of 2.5 GPA to be a part of our program. So we have 85% of our young men have scored a 3.0 or higher.
So let's deal with that 14. Thank you for sharing those results. What we have to navigate is how to get greater results. 14, I'm sure, is a good number for you. Do you have volunteers that work with you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So 14 is a safe number for you and your volunteers. But the reality is, if you're going to get funding, if you're going to get support, if you're going to get people in place to help you go to the next level and exponentially multiply, we got to get beyond that 14 number. Marcel, I'm not sure if I lost you there. Are you still there? We're going to give Marcel a moment to get reconnected. All right, there you go, Marcel. Are you back? I think you muted. Are you back?
Yes, sir.
All right. So I was saying that 14 number is a safe number for you and your volunteers. But if you're going to get funders involved, sponsors involved, individual donors involved, people going to your events, you're going to get them involved and bought into your mission and vision of what you're working on, 14 is not enough. You have to exponentially multiply the number of young men you're mentoring. So then the question you got to be asking me is, how do I do that? Because you told me you're an artist, you travel, you have gigs, you're all over the place, you're doing a bunch of amazing things, and the question is, how do I do that? And I'm sure with your volunteers, there have been times they have let you down, they didn't show up, and you had to stop what you're doing, and you had to go and serve these young men to make sure there's continuity in their lives, because young adults need continuity. And so given that, and I see you shaking your head, and I'm sure this is the story of everybody else, the question you got to ask me is, how do I get results? How do I multiply? How do I do more? This is the secret. This is the thing that I teach people what to do. You have to look at the revenue you do generate from your own tithing. I'm going back to that idea. You got to look at the revenue you're generating from the tithing of your board and your friends and the revenue from your events, and you have to invest that money. How do you do that? You got to invest that money through my first secret, partnerships. So the second secret and the third secret I'm teaching you are going to be intertwined. Your partnerships are going to have to evolve and go to a whole nother level, right? I don't know who your partners are, and I don't necessarily want to get into that because what partnerships you have may be relevant to you, but you got to elevate the partners you have. You're going to take this money that you have and you are going to multiply your results by investing it into other organizations. You, for a season, are going to become a grantor. That means you are going to give away grants. Doesn't matter the size. Don't be embarrassed. This is for everybody's listening. You people want to give away thousands of dollars. That's not the point. You're missing the point. The point of you making this gift and making this a grant to other organizations is so that you can receive the results that your money has caused to happen. One of the examples I give, and I love to give, is a parent who has children. Do you have any children?
Not yet, no, sir.
Not yet. I love that.
I feel like I have 14.
You got 14. So let's talk to the people who got kids, like that birthed them out, right? And typically, if you have a healthy relationship, it's a mother and a father, two-parent household who's taking care of a kid. Now, there may be one parent who's actually more hands-on, the nurturer of the child, but then there's the other parent who may be working, who may be paying the bills, right? Regardless of where you fall on either side of the track, your investment into the family unit will result in this kid achieving some sort of result. Typically, you'll see the result at, quote, 18, right? When that kid becomes a, quote, adult. And whatever that kid becomes is a result of your investment, even if your investment was only paying the bills, right? Even if your investment was staying home and watching a kid and nurturing a kid, even if your investment was paying for ballet classes or basketball camp or making sure the kid had food, clothing, and shelter. While you invested the basics, that kid had the freedom to not worry about the basics, and they were free to live and be and become, right? So their success is not just their success. The success of a kid is the success of their parents, because the parent invested in that child along that 18-year journey. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
So then, Marcel, what we're saying is their success is my success. When that kid graduates from high school and college, get that master's degree and doctorate degree, my mother told me, that's my doctorate degree. I'm like, man, listen, you ain't study, you ain't write those articles. But what she's saying is your success, your eventual success, William, you becoming Dr. Clark is my success. All those years I've invested, getting up early, helping you with your homework when you were younger, providing food, clothing, shelter, allowed you to start thinking randomly crazy, off the charts, beyond. Your success is my success. So Marcel, I need you to repeat after me. Their success is my success.
Their success is my success.
Their success is my success. Come on, one
Right.
more time.
Their success is my success.
And I'm not talking about the 14 young men you're mentoring. I'm talking about your business partners and the people you're going to give grants to. One more time. Their success is my success. When I
Their
give
success.
away grants, that's right. When I give away grants, and no matter the size of the grant, the results that they achieve with the grants I give away is my success. Here's a great example. You may give $500 a month to a local youth group that does football camp. Now, this football camp brings in $500,000 a year. They have a full staff, they have coaches, they have trainers, they have counselors, they have the whole nine facilities. But for some reason, they, with the urban kids that they serve, they keep losing footballs. And here comes Marcel and acceleratingmen.org, and they say, listen, we want to invest in the life of these young men. We want to make sure that we support you. We want to give a $500 grant per month to your organization. Do you think that organization is going to turn you down? No. Why? And it's not about the money. It's not about the size. It's about what that money can do. Because of your investment in that youth group, that youth group is able to buy new footballs every month, and they no longer have to worry about where to find an extra $500 to buy a new set of footballs. The coach doesn't have to come out of his pocket anymore, and it's all because of Marcel Anderson and his investment. So that investment can mean the world of difference, no matter how small it is. It can mean the world of difference to an organization. But there's more to the story, because their success is your success. We're talking about partnerships. We're talking about strategy right now. We're talking about results. When they have all those kids there for 4 months, every kid must maintain a 3.2 GPA to stay in the football team. Every kid must be tutored, right? Every kid must have X numbers, XYZ results in their grades. They must go on to high school in order to stay in a football team. And remember, we started out saying their success is your success. So when I talk about multiplying your results from 14 to 50 to 100, I'm talking about you investing in other organizations who are serving the same young men, same age, in different categories, in different ways, and you investing in them to get the results. Why does that matter so much? Why did I spend time on that? Because their success is your success. When your 501c3 status is confirmed and approved, and you go on BIN on Facebook and you say, we got the seal, we got the 501c3 seal, and you start to go after partnerships and funding, you start to raise money through events and sponsorships, you now can boldly say that acceleratedmen.org has served 75 kids year after year after year. And the results we achieved are as follows: a 3.2 GPA for each kid. Every kid successfully entering and completing high school. Every kid successfully entering college or a trade school, and they're on their way to economic sustainability. 14 is small in comparison to 75. And it's because you've invested into other organizations. Their success is your success. You want to get towards that stage of sustainability, hiring staff, stop burdening yourself by doing everything yourself. This is how you do it. You got to invest your money. Yes, sir.
I was just praising the Lord when you said
Oh,
that.
go ahead, praise him, man. But I'm gonna pause here. We got 2 minutes left. I do just want to give it back to you, man. How is that sitting with you?
Yeah, it's sitting very well. Again, I'm taking notes and just again, just taking it all in, taking notes and digesting it, and eating this knowledge and information, because we will execute in it. For us, we every year I create a theme for our mentoring program, and this year our theme is foundation.
Mm.
Just really realigning ourselves and understanding that some things that I did not do. So I had to reassess, reanalyze who we are, and revisiting our foundation. And I always come up with the acronym, with the word that we create as well. So that acronym is on my wall. I can read it to you real quick. If you on my wall, I have everything here. So foundation defined for us this mentoring year, and I'll give it back to you. Is finding out you need deep assessment internally in order to operate now. So again, our organization focus on the internal piece, the identity of development of each young man using the Eric Erickson's psychosocial theory model to help them to develop and knowing who they are and who they're not. So again, with this foundation piece, helping them to look inside first. So for us, again, I'm taking away a lot of foundational stuff and hope to apply it. Will apply it. I hope will apply it, and hopefully get back with you so we can connect on the next steps on how we can be successful as an organization.
Yeah, and before we end this recording, just for the benefit of those watching, Marcel, I think, what I shared are principles that all nonprofits, particularly newbies, can start to implement, because it's all about exponential growth and multiplication. A lot of organizations need to start where you are, which is giving to their own organization, tithing on a consistent basis. But the next phase is figuring out what partnerships are legitimately available to you and how you can multiply results. I do want to just talk with you a few more moments before we, right after I end this recording. But for those watching, I want to encourage you, if you want to get in contact with me, go ahead and visit nonprofitfundingstrategies.com. Again, that's nonprofitfundingstrategies.com. You can schedule a consult with me, just like I did with Marcel. Marcel, I do want to thank you for allowing all of us to be a part of your coaching and consult session. And I appreciate you, and I wish you the best and much success, my friend.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate you. We'll be in contact.